Alabama got a huge commitment from a wide receiver out of Florida. Stop me if you've heard it before. Well, don't stop me. Go ahead and listen. We're going to talk about it right now.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
That's me. Man, what a news cycle. It's not like everything in the world happened in the last 24 hours, but again, this whole time from now until roughly Christmas, it is going to be news central.
It is.
Portal, recruiting.
This episode of Locked On Bama is brought to you by Sling TV. Don't miss this weekend's matchup between Alabama and South Dakota State. You can find it on Sling TV. You can find everything on Sling TV. The TV you love for a price you'll love. That's Sling TV. Try it today. I'll tell you about Sling TV a little bit more in just a minute. But Jimmy, Alabama got a commitment yesterday, and look at me here as he joins us. Jaren Hamilton. Not really. He just joins us in a photograph.
What's interviewing?
Right in between. So no comment, huh, Jaren? It's just a picture of Jaren for those listening on the podcast and not on YouTube. But Jaren Hamilton, a wide receiver, 6'1", 188, out of Gainesville, Florida, of all places. Jimmy, I'm looking at his offer list right now: Alabama, Boston College, Florida, Jackson State. It's not the offer list to end all offer lists, but he is the number 261 player in the country. I think this guy is shooting up the charts a little bit. He's going to end up probably, I'm going to say, in the top 200 when all said and done consensusly. I'm taking a stab in the dark. But right now on 24/7, he's number 261 on the composite, I should say. And he's number 34 wide receiver in the country. So big pickup for Alabama. We talked about him a little bit on yesterday's podcast, predicted he'd commit to Alabama at some point. What do you think of him?
Real excited about this. Regardless of the ranking, people need to here's what you need to know as Alabama fans. This kid who was not a big name. He wasn't a big name based off his sophomore and junior years. This guy didn't go into the off season before his senior season as I guess what we would call a big deal, right? I mean, he was a name, but he wasn't a big name. Well, he came to Alabama's camp where he ran a 4.4 and did other things in the camp, going up against big-time DBs that Alabama and everybody else was recruiting, and showed out in camp to the point that not only did he get an Alabama offer, he became a high priority for Alabama. Once Alabama offered him this summer, they never stopped considering him an A-list kid. You already have Hale from Texas. You already have Malik Benson. You already have Cole Adams, all of whom were ranked higher than Jaren at the time. But Alabama continued to prioritize Jaren and never stopped. So the services may have him in one spot, and he may move up from there. But if Alabama was doing the rankings, he'd be in a completely different spot, and Alabama got to work with him one-on-one in camp. So this is a guy Alabama has liked from the start. I think sometimes when it's this late in the process and you take a kid who isn't a five-star or who isn't a top 100 player, you always get this question from fans, which is, Alabama must be on the B list. Boy, Alabama's lost who they really wanted, and now they're just filling it up with just whoever they can. While that may have used to have happened to some degree in some instances, the transfer portal has sort of killed the idea that you would ever take a player that's not good enough. For now, a school like Alabama is only taking players they consider A-list takes. And if they end up short, they know they can go to the portal and find someone. So, no, he's not a kid like that because there just isn't one that Alabama would take. Sure, there's a pecking order. Sure, there's a guy that's number 1 on your board and a guy that's number 2 and a guy that's number 3 and a guy that's number 4. Sure, but it's way more simple than that, folks. It's this simple. You're a take or you're not. This kid has been a take for Alabama since this summer. He just waited until now to go ahead and make the decision. And we've known for a while that it was always going to be Alabama. So that's a story of Jaren Hamilton. Really excited to have him. Burner, playmaker, real good fit with the other receivers. I called Jalen Hale a possession receiver, and somebody got mad at me on the board for doing that on the Bama Insider Talking Champions board because that made him sound less than he is. Hey, look, I would call Ja'Cory Brooks a possession receiver. That's how I call big-bodied guys with good hands that are dependable. I mean, that's what a possession receiver is. He's going to catch the ball, and he's going to get past that first down marker. When it's 3rd and 7, and you need a guy that can get open in a short area, use his body to make the catch, and make the first down. That's a possession receiver to me. But Ja'Cory Brooks, as you all have noticed, I would, by the way, call Mechie a possession receiver. But I'm sure you all have noticed that Mechie and Ja'Cory Brooks, they hold all the time. Just because I call you a possession receiver doesn't mean you're not capable of doing other things or that you're not even really good at doing other things. So, yeah, to me, Hale's a possession guy, but will he make vertical plays? Oh, he's going to make plenty of vertical plays.
You mean, you went to Hale. Okay, that's fine. Okay. One other recruiting note very quickly. There was a report on the Auburn site, and this will segue into what I'm going to talk about in the next segment. But there was a report on an Auburn site that, Tony Mitchell is still very much looking at Auburn, blah, blah, blah. And it got some Alabama fans sort of ruffled. And so the 24/7 folks apparently gave Tony Mitchell a call and said, what's up with this? And Tony Mitchell, I'm going to try and find it immediately here. This is from Hank South, who's great at his job. Somebody mentioned that, hey, he just talked to Auburn. And he was like, yeah, that's why I just hung up with him. He said that he's 100% locked in with Alabama. He said, I'm locked in. Nothing would change his mind off the Crimson Tide at this point in time. So if you've read a report about him switching or flipping or anything, according to him, and things change all the time, he said he doesn't plan on another visit to Auburn. He does have a visit to Texas A&M. That's the only one. Certainly that, could be a little bit concerning, but I'm not super concerned about it. I feel like he wants to be at Alabama. I feel like everything's working out for him to be at Alabama. So I feel like Tony Mitchell will stick with Alabama. By the way, Wednesday, I don't know if you're watching this on Tuesday or Wednesday, but Wednesday night, Thompson High School, where Tony Mitchell goes to school, and Peter Woods and some other badass dudes on that team will be taking on another group of complete superstars in Auburn High School there at Jordan-Hare Stadium. I'm going to be at the games on Thursday and Friday. I'll be calling 2 of the games on Thursday, and then I'll be doing sideline all day Friday. So I'm really looking forward to that. I get to see Saraland up close and personal. I can't wait for that. So that's going to be Friday night.
Let me ask you this, Mr. AHSAA Super 6 guy. This is
Super 7, but go ahead.
Yeah, Super C. That's why you're the Super 7 guy, and I'm not. I don't even have the number right. It used to be the Super 6. It used
Correct.
to. Then they added 7A. What is this not true? Auburn High School, games at Auburn, Jordan-Hare, Auburn High School playing for the state championship against Thompson. Isn't there a quarterback that plays for Auburn High School, last name Harsin?
He is. Now, he's the I think technically he's the backup.
Point being, isn't Dad going to be there supporting his son?
I think he is. I mean, according to all reports, he will be. So
it's quite the scene, isn't it?
It is. It's
Brian Harsin's going back to Auburn to sit in Jordan-Hare as a fan to watch his son, and he should. And frankly, no one should give him anything at all. But isn't it great, proud dad, that your son's on a team playing for the state championship? I just think that it's obviously newsworthy that Brian Harsin is watching a game in Jordan-Hare. Obviously,
I think it's going to be quite interesting. And again, that segues into what we're going to talk about next, because there was apparently also something on one of the Harsons, or the Hardashians, as some people have lovingly called them, one of their Instagrams about how about Hugh Freeze coming to Auburn, and it said hook and then in parentheses and then line and sinker. I thought that was kind of funny. But let me tell everybody about BetOnline right now. BetOnline is where you want to go to get that bet in. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional amateur league out there. That's MMA, NFL, college football, college basketball, NBA, whatever you got. All the M's and the B's and the A's, they got all of them there at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you'll find those at betonline.net as well. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. Jimmy.
Yo.
So Auburn has officially hired Hugh Freeze. The best line I've seen so far is I bet the goalposts will now be used for pole dancing. I thought that was kind of funny.
Dangerous. It's way up there.
It is way up there. With those high heels, can you imagine on the crossbar? But yeah, it's
falling off and a guy below catching them and going, that's a kick six.
I like it.
Likely less than a six. It's Auburn.
Yeah, that's true. Right. More kick 4.5. At 2 o'clock in the morning, she's a 6. But anyway,
good stuff.
So Hugh Freeze has been hired at Auburn.
Highest rated Alabama podcast on this network.
Hugh Freeze has been hired by Auburn. He took a swipe at Alabama. Look, I'll give him this. He's nothing if not silver-tongued because he
Yikes. Family show.
He fed the Auburn crowd and media and fans and everybody exactly what they wanted at his press conference. I mean, if you didn't know about his past, which isn't all that much past, by the way, but if you didn't know about it, you would say, man, what a good old boy, what a good old Southern charmer. And he went everything by the How to Endure Yourself to the Auburn Fans book. He talked about family. He got choked up. He talked about forgiveness. And then he took a swipe at Nick Saban about, I hope he's nervous right now. Okay. I mean, okay, again, do what you got to do. I understand. But it's just funny. I thought it was a little funny. But the bottom line is, does Hugh Freeze's arrival at Auburn, do you think it'll have an effect on Alabama recruiting? I'm going to say yes, but because you could have put a sack of wet sand in the recruiting chair at Auburn and he would be better. That sack, I'm calling it a he, it could be a she, would be better than Brian Harsin was. Because, when you said, was Brian Harsin going to go watch his son play? I don't know why he wouldn't. He was at his son's game every Friday night, apparently, instead of recruiting. I mean, look, call it whatever you want to, but a lot of coaches tend to forget they have a family during high school football season because they're always somewhere on Friday recruiting. So Brian Harsin doesn't know. And that's kind of the ironic thing. But, so I think, yes, Hugh Freeze will have an effect. I mean, Hugh Freeze is going to make every staff around here work a little harder. Do I think he's going to end up, providing Auburn with top 5 classes? I don't think so.
Top 5, I don't know. I mean, it's an NIL world. It would depend on how aggressive Auburn is with NIL. And I mean, that drives the train. I mean, if UNLV, put $1 billion in their collective, I mean, they would be a threat to push Alabama off the spot. I mean, it's just an NIL world, and that's the number one factor in recruiting. It used to be geography. Then I'm not sure what it was, but right now it's NIL, way ahead of geography. NIL is the number one factor in recruiting. Hey, and I'm going to compliment Hugh Freeze for probably my first and only time I'll ever do that on Locked On Bama. But one thing about Hugh Freeze improving Auburn's recruiting is I do believe Hugh Freeze has had some success in his career as a head coach because he properly prioritizes recruiting. Much like Nick Saban, I think Hugh Freeze fully realizes that he's only going to win games if his players are better than your players. So he spends considerable time and effort doing all he can to make sure his players are better than the opponent's players. That's how Nick Saban has had his success. And I believe Hugh Freeze it has that same belief system. And I think because Hugh Freeze properly prioritizes recruiting, that in and of itself is going to make a big difference. Also think Hugh's pretty smart about it too. I do think, put it this way, I have absolutely no doubt that starting this year, and especially in the 24 and 25 classes, Hugh Freeze will sign players at Auburn that Alabama tried to sign. That is going to happen. Get used to it. That's going to happen. It was never going to happen under Harsin, and frankly, didn't happen a ton under Gus Malzahn. It did, but not a lot. It's going to happen more frequently under Hugh Freeze, and if he has success at Auburn, it will be for that reason.
No, and I agree with that 100%. I really do. And I got some buddies that do an Auburn show every day at lunch, and today I was watching it, and they said, it's been funny watching sort of some backtracking on this, because a lot of these same folks that are now lauding this as a wonderful hire not too terribly long ago were thinking he was a little bit shady, to put it mildly. And but anyway, the guys were saying that, hey, Hugh Freeze went to Ole Miss, and like all of a sudden, they were in the doldrums. Then he got them to the number 8 class, number 13 class, number 11 class, number 15 class. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly why he got on probation. I mean, that's exactly what happened. You're absolutely right. They did get him on probation. And I know you're right. It's an NIL world, and things are going to change, and he is definitely going to get some people. And like I said, he is charismatic, especially. And here's the positive. I've read a lot of reaction from recruits today about him on some various Auburn sites, and all the recruits were like, I don't really know who he is. I think that's a huge positive for Hugh Freeze. If you don't know who he is and you just listen to him talk, you're going to think, what a salt of the earth guy. But if
he was fired in 2016.
Yeah.
So an 18-year-old,
yeah,
he was 12.
Yeah.
And 12-year-olds don't spend a lot of their time going through the internet wondering, I wonder what adult has been accused of soliciting hookers today. No, I mean, so it doesn't surprise me in the least that today's 18-year-olds wouldn't really know who Hugh Freeze is. That's not surprising. And it goes to also show a good lesson about how teams don't recruit really based off the glorious past traditions of the school. Like, dude, you need to sign here. You should have seen Johnny Musso or Cornelius Bennett. You're going to play football where Cornelius Bennett played. You might as well be telling them about George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or Napoleon Bonaparte. I mean, these are fictional characters and history books to these kids,
That's absolutely right. And I mean, the traditionalist in me hates that, but it's where we are. And you're already seeing, I mean, the transfer portal is already getting completely bogged down as it is. I mean, just on a daily basis. So yeah, Alabama's going to get some dudes from the portal. They're going to lose some dudes to the portal. Auburn's going to do the same thing. I do think Hugh Freeze is a massive upgrade from Brian Harsin. I think anybody would have been an upgrade. I mean, literally anybody. Literally anybody. I think Harsin wanted out of Auburn badly, and he was like, I'm trying to get fired. I just want my check, and I want to go. And I feel like mission accomplished, W. I mean, it worked. So, Jimmy, let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about some bracketology for the basketball team. Okay, ESPN, Joe Lunardi came out with their latest bracketology, and Alabama had been hovering around the 6 mark for a while. Now they've moved up to the 4 spot, Jimmy, on this latest bracketology, where they would play the first round. Again, this is all fun and games. I mean, it's so far away, but they would play their first round game in Orlando, Florida, which I mean, it's fine, but their game's in Birmingham. So I want to get up high enough where we can actually play in Birmingham this year. That would be awesome. But we would be the 4 seed playing Furman, and UCLA would be the 5 playing Kent State. I find that all interesting because Alabama has a history with both those teams. Kent State knocked us out, I think, in the round of 32.
Antonio Gates played on that team, correct? That would later become an all-pro tight end.
Yeah, we were a 2 seed and we got bounced. And then UCLA, of course, beat us a couple years ago. We hit a long 3 to tie it, and then we go to overtime, and I thought we were going to win, and we didn't. And UCLA went on to to the Final Four. They won that bracket, went on to the Final
Didn't
Four.
Reese hit that that 3?
Yeah, Alex Reese hit it.
Mm-hmm. People never forget that. I hate that sometimes we have basketball players and football players, but you have basketball players who do something so incredibly awesome, but when you lose the game, it's forgotten.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change what they did, Because that 3 was unreal.
It was. And I mean, it was like 35, 38 feet out. It was a long way.
At least 10 feet behind the line with the season on the line. And he wasn't exactly our most dependable shooter, for him to knock that down. So, I mean, if I ever have the fortune, Alex Reese in the beer line, it's on me, buddy. And I'm going to bring up that shot.
I'm right there with you. Now, the interesting thing is I'm looking over this thing. The other SEC teams, they've got Alabama in the same bracket as us, not Kentucky in the same bracket as us.
They're good.
Kentucky, they have them as a 6 seed, Jimmy.
Ooh.
Wow.
Who's higher than Alabama in the SEC?
Well, that's Arkansas, also a 4. They have them in the West as a 4. You've got Tennessee as a 3. And you know what? I think that's fair. Tennessee just beat Kansas. They have Auburn as a 5. They're in the same bracket and the South bracket. And then in the Midwest, I'm looking for SEC teams. I see Mississippi State as a 7. So, I mean, what's that, 7 SEC teams? Is that 7 or 8 SEC teams?
Yep.
No, let's see.
It
says 8. Now, who did I not say? I said Tennessee.
You said 7. 1. Alabama. Do we count Alabama?
Okay, Alabama, Kentucky, Arkansas, Tennessee, Auburn, Mississippi State. Who am I missing? Arkansas is 7. I don't see
Auburn.
the other. I said Auburn.
Mississippi State.
Texas A&M. No, they got Texas A&M CC. LSU. Sorry, I see LSU now. Okay.
LSU
is a play-in.
Here's what the thing, man, we've been talking about NCAA sanctions all week because of Hugh Freeze and all that stuff. And here's an amazing fact that just blows me away because I just looked into this week. We still don't have sanctions from the NCAA on LSU. That's LSU has its self-imposed sanctions. But in terms of like Will Wade and a show cause that's coming for him, the LSU basketball case isn't even resolved. He was on tape discussing buying a basketball player, and I believe the basketball player was James Worthy. That's how long ago.
He was one other thing he got in trouble for, he reneged on payments for peach baskets for the hoops. No, I mean, just that's
he said,
so stupid.
I offered 95 shillings. That's a strong ass offer.
I traded you 3 pounds of corn pone for these baskets. And anyway, it's so stupid that the NCAA can't do that. That's so stupid. But regardless, very happy with Alabama moving up to the 4 seed. I think they can do better than this. I'm also just still ecstatic. I looked at CBS Sports, and they do a top 5 freshman. It's ranked every week, but they say, okay, they adjust it for the year. So you might not be the top freshman that week, but they still have the same freshman at the top for the year. So they do like an annual thing. They have Brandon Miller as the top freshman of the year so far. And I think that's clear as day. I mean, I haven't seen a freshman as good as him. I tell you, the other freshman that I've seen is over at Kansas and Grady Dick, who Alabama recruited very hard. And my God, if Alabama had gotten those two, that would have been awesome. But I mean, I love the team we got, so I'm not going to complain at all. And very, very fired up about it.
Call them the Fab Four. I did that the other day. I came up with that.
You did?
Yeah, I did. I came up with that all on my own. Brandon Miller, Rylan Griffin, Jaden Bradley, and Noah Clowney. The Fab Four. I had to really reach for that, but I did.
I dig it. And I mean, throw a Nick Pringle in there and,
Yeah, I was talking about but you're right. He was in the recruiting class, but I wouldn't I mean, I want to see more from Pringle. Obviously, great athlete, looks like $1 million, but I want to see more from him before I make it.
He can't be in the fab yet.
He's not fab yet. He looks fab. I mean, he's that, frankly, and since I'm still new to watching them play and it takes me, twice, but now I got it down pretty good. But when Pringle's out there, I can't tell him and Clowney apart sometimes. They're built a lot alike, Nick Pringle and Clowney.
And they both can absolutely sky. So
exactly.
Pringle can really sky. He can really sky. We haven't seen him have a monster jam yet. It's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. He's got a Dante Hall type vertical.
Is he left-handed?
God, I mean, Jimmy.
I'm making that up because
I don't know.
For some reason, he reminds me of. He's like a taller, bigger Scenario Hillman. Remember him?
Yeah, do I remember him? But I mean, that's the opposite of what Nick Pringle is to me. But
I know you remember Nick Pringle. You remember Hillman? How long?
No, I'm saying Scenario Hillman is the opposite of Nick Pringle to me.
Well, they could both. The vertical leap. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Hillman could jump like 40 inches, and he was left-handed, and he was sort of built pretty well for a guard.
Yeah.
Pringle I think he's left-handed. He can jump 40 inches. He's built like that. But here's my question about both, and this, I guess, where the comp comes from. Incredible athletes, still not sold on the high level of basketball skill.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, buddy, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk about these rankings that are going to be coming out here shortly. We had to put this pod out real quick, but I got to go watch the rankings. I'm going to be on the ranking show, so I'm looking forward to that. But until tomorrow, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.